entitled Designing and Implementing Green Public Investment Programs, Experience on Water Supply and Wastewater Treatment in Rural and Remote Areas. My name is Krzysztof Michalak. I'm coordinating the work on environmental governance and finance in the region of Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia. And I'm also coordinating the implementation of the OECD activities under the EU-funded EU for Environment program. Under this program, this webinar is organized. The EU for Environment program supports countries in the Eastern Partnership region, including Azerbaijan, to improve national governance and regulatory mechanisms that support transition to a greener and more sustainable development path. There are several streams of activities under the program that are being implemented by the OECD, but also by our partners from UNEP, UNIDO, and UNEC, as well as the World Bank. And I would like to invite you to check our euforenvironment.org website for further information and details. And on the EU for Environment website, you will also find a link to our monthly newsletter that will help you to keep in touch with our activities. Efficient and effective public expenditure, which is important in meeting environmental and climate-related objectives, is one of those activities that are implemented by EU for Environment. And the main objective of this work on designing green public investment programs is to equip the government officials and also experts in the region with the know-how and practical skills on designing those public expenditure environmental expenditure programs. And such programs, they basically help to obtain adequate resources from public budgets, but also they help to leverage international co-financing for its implementation. Currently, under EU for Environment, we are implementing those programs in 3 countries, in Moldova, in Georgia, and Azerbaijan. And there is already plenty of experience from the implementation of those programs in those countries and also in other countries of the region of Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia. And again, you will find information about those activities on the website and also in the cover note of the agenda. The particular work in Azerbaijan is focusing on water management, and we are very glad that we can work with the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of Azerbaijan on implementation of this particular project. And this project in Azerbaijan provides our help to increase the capacity of government authorities for better management of public resources, with a special focus on water supply sector. And then we hope that the proposed investment measures of the program will help to address a serious issue of declining in the supply of quality water. The program that we are working on will focus on enabling a more widespread use of non-standard water resources, including the groundwater extraction and surface water catchments. We hope that this particular green public investment program will contribute to the overall objective of diversifying water supply services by using the mix of different sources. We also hope that the program will contribute to to water availability for regions that are vulnerable to climate change. And then the rationale behind this program is based on the premise that public environmental expenditure, direct or indirect, is a key instrument to address some of the fundamental problems related to future water supply reliability and security. This particular work in Azerbaijan is a very good implementation and a follow-up to some very important decisions that were taken by heads of states from Eastern Partnership at the EAP summit that was held at the end of the last year. And as we know that there is among several priorities, the new important priority under environment and climate resilience pillar is water management. And at this point, I would like to welcome our colleagues who just started implementing a new phase of project on water management in the region of Eastern Partnership. That's called Water Management and Data. And we are already discussing the joint implementation of certain projects, and this particular work in Azerbaijan is a very good example of cooperation. So let's just move to the objectives of this webinar, which is to facilitate the knowledge transfer and knowledge experience between the EU and Eastern Partnership countries concerning the approaches on water supply and sanitation in remote areas, and also concerning greening public expenditure. I should say that this is actually the fourth seminar that we bring together experts from the European Union members and the Eastern Partnership countries, covering the different aspects of public expenditure management. For this particular seminar, we welcome our distinguished speakers, whom I will introduce as we go through the agenda. And let me now find my agenda, which I saved here. Yes. Before we start with our distinguished speakers from the member countries, I would like to ask our colleague David Toft from Commonwealth Credit Public Consulting, which is an institution that in which we are working very closely on the implementation of those programs, to give us to set the scene for this seminar, and then present us the market study that was prepared for Green Public Investment Program in Azerbaijan that identified some directions for investment pipelines in the water sector, which then would facilitate the implementation of the water strategy of Azerbaijan. David, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Christoph. As was said, my purpose here is to give you just a short background of what we're doing in Azerbaijan to set the context, and then the rest of the presentations will add to that, to add to some depth. Okay, so the topic here is market study. Now, the market study is a part of the Green Public Investment Program. So the Green Public Investment Program, which Christoph was mentioning, is a series of investment measures that are designed to achieve public objectives in a specified timeline with a clearly allocated budget for their implementation. The market study is the analytical component that provides the data for the program design and costing. Christoph has already gone over what are the objectives of the Green Public Investment Program in Azerbaijan in the water supply sector. So we'll not dwell on those, but it's essentially to diversify water supply sources, looking at both surface and groundwater to increase the use of groundwater. One of the important parts of setting the stage for the market study is to understand what are the sector challenges what are the water sector challenges in Azerbaijan. And briefly, it's that there's a definite uneven distribution of and access to water resources. Surface water mainly comes from transboundary rivers that already arrive to the country polluted, and some rural area residents lack a reliable water supply due to a lack of water supply infrastructure. On the other hand, groundwater resources are mainly concentrated in the foothills, and they're of higher quality, whereas in the lowlands, they're poorly drained and often exhibits high salinity, or even closer to the coast, some infiltration from salt water. Another key challenge is the outdated water resource inventories. So most of the knowledge about what kinds of water resources available come from several decades ago. And so this is something that the government of Azerbaijan has recognized. It's an important point of their water strategy, is to update these water resource inventories and to conduct all kinds of studies that help them understand the exact status quo of water resources. And this is important because it's in particular because of in its communications on what climate impacts are expected in Azerbaijan, the forecasted changes in temperature. There's parts will be heavily impacted, but all will be average temperature increase. It's expected in some areas more intensively, of course, and with that declines in precipitation, especially in the second half of this century. Any kind of water resource strategy in Azerbaijan needs to necessarily focus primarily on agriculture because it is, apart from the energy sector, it is the main user of water. It's about 88% of water resources use is agriculture and irrigation. And so this means that any kind of investment program needs to have a component that is looking at the reducing losses and increasing the efficiency of irrigation. Here we see the total of abstraction of fresh water. As I mentioned at the beginning, one of the ideas is to diversify the sources, the water sources that are used. And this, as you can see here, it's still the groundwater is something that is it's a resource that's waiting to be tapped a bit in some areas to increase the abstraction from groundwater. At the same time, important to reduce losses. Losses here are an important component of total freshwater use, and making up a significant, about a third of the water that's abstracted is lost in transmission. Here you can see the totals in million cubic meters or per capita of the water abstraction, and it's increasing, whereas some efforts in reducing water losses is bearing fruit, as water losses during transmission have been declining, but still a significant component of water abstraction. Here we see some of the economic regions, and some are excluded where the program will not be involved. But it shows the increase in irrigation and water supply to agriculture that has been occurring. So it's going to be something that it's going to be more intensely needed in the agricultural sector with the changes in climate. The domestic water use, on the other hand, we can see that total consumption per person is actually declining. This is something it's generally recognized that there's enough available for once they're provided with infrastructure, there's enough water that's available for domestic use, that it's the real limiting factor here is going to be agriculture and also energy. Other challenges that were reviewed in the market study is that there's a poor technical condition of pipelines and canals. As mentioned, this is leading to high level of losses in transmission, but also there are cases of excessive withdrawal of water from springs that can lead to periodic loss of required environmental flow. Awareness raising is needed. This is something that's recognized in the strategy, is to increase awareness on the rational use of water resources. This has to be communicated to citizens, but also to industry and to users of irrigation water, to farmers and farming associations. You can see with repairs, capital repairs that have occurred in the on water and wastewater infrastructure, it's been not too significant. These are in 1,000 manat, so it's around €1 million per year that have been invested. On the other hand, capital investments in environmental protection, which is including water resources infrastructure, is around 84 million manat, which is about 45 million euros. We also did a review of the main stakeholders that have an effect on the water sector. There's many of them. It's also recognized that this is an issue with the kind of overlapping, in some instances, responsibilities between the main stakeholders. But generally, we have the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources that is doing the policy, and then importantly, the Azerbaijan and the Amelioration, which have their responsibilities in first in Azerbaijan in water supply and sanitation services, and then Amelioration in bulk water supply and irrigation systems. There's also established a national water policy dialogue, which is, among others, has its advocating for the introduction of the integrated water resources management, and also established a commission on water resources by the order of the president in 2020 to ensure the efficient use of water resources and to improve water management and coordinate activities in the area. We reviewed, there's a national strategy on rational use of water. It has many, let's say, strategic objectives, which are listed here. The objectives, at least as they're stated, are not, there's no sort of measurements or indicators toward them. They're more, areas of activities, we can say. The national strategy sets a short-term and medium and long-term objectives. The short-term objectives is mainly to implement this action plan for 2020-2022 that was approved by presidential decree. And it identifies many priority areas for activities, some of which involve capital investments, but a lot of it is kind of setting the stage for capital investments, so doing studies, water inventories, etc. It doesn't contain cost estimates. It also, the Azerbaijan and Amelioration have, let's say, transposed the priorities, the investment priorities onto their own investment priorities and strategies. So they've got an overlap with priority investments there. As I mentioned, the action plan for 2020-2022 is set the stage for water sector reforms in particular, and also prioritizing some areas of capital investments. So based on this information, we look at to develop this the market study, which becomes the basis for the Green Public Investment Program. Look at, as I said, the strategy does not contain estimates for investments. We're using past feasibility studies and ongoing projects that are being implemented, for example, by Azerbaijan, to understand what are the general costs of different kinds of investments, and then using the average unit cost method, which is essentially the only one available to us when we have this kind of this amount of information. So taking the average unit cost for providing, let's say, one person with water supply, and then multiplying that over the number of persons needed to be supplied. This leads us to identifying project pipelines, which will focus on 4 areas: water supply infrastructure, water storage infrastructure, water treatment infrastructure, and wastewater treatment infrastructure, focusing on small deconcentrated areas. Larger investments are going to need, will need feasibility studies and things like this, but a program can set the overall, let's say, investment envelope that is needed to get things going. And with that, that is the very brief, the background to what's going on, and with the development of the Green Public Investment Program in Azerbaijan, in the water sector. And I'd like to turn it over then to colleagues for examples from other countries.
Thank you very much, David, for this presentation and giving up the background for a discussion in the context of Azerbaijan, which is very interesting, challenging. Certainly, we are working with colleagues from the ministries then try to capture as much as data information as possible in order to come with good solutions in putting together those different elements of the investment program. So that's very important. I personally need to apologize for one mistake that I've made at the beginning. I assumed that we may be seeing all the participants, but I understand that the meeting is organized in a webinar format, so we may not see everyone. You all see us, but we may not see all of you. So certainly, please use the chat function to put your questions and share your thoughts on what we are hearing during the seminar. Yes, so thanks, David. Now let's move to sharing the experience from other countries, and this is, as I said, this is already one seminar in series. We had in series of seminars that we had an exchange and good ideas and knowledge being shared from other countries with the region of Eastern Europe and this partnership. So now I'd like to open the panel of distinguished speakers, who will be started by Dr. Adriana Magdalena Pienaro, who comes from the University of Agronomic Science and Veterinary Medicine of Bucharest in Romania. Dr. Pienaro holds PhD in rural water infrastructure and has over 35 years of experience in municipal infrastructure, project financing, and investment planning. And she has cooperated with several local governments and financial institutions in Eastern Europe, but also in Western Asia. And we're very happy to hear the Romania experience regarding the water and wastewater system in rural areas. So now, Mrs. Pienaro, the floor is yours, please.
So first of all, thank you for this opportunity to be today with you and trying to convince you that in Romania we did some work over the years. I am happy to see that among the participants there are people that I have worked with in Moldova and maybe some people in Georgia, but I couldn't see all the participants. I am impressed about the number of participants, and also I am happy to say that a few days ago OECD has also started discussions for new member states. Among these 6 new states is also Romania. So I hope that in the future we will have more opportunities to be together in such events. As you may know, Romania is quite a big country. We are approximately 90 million inhabitants and quite a big surface, 230,000 square kilometers. And among the EU member states, we rank 9th as geographical area and 7th by population. We are also known about, let's say, a diverse and balanced natural landscape heritage. And we are proud to share the Danube Delta and also to have the Carpathians. Romania is a sovereign, independent country. We are like administrative organizations. Our territory is divided into communes, towns, and counties. We have 41 counties, and also the municipality of Bucharest, which is the capital of our country, which holds both municipality and county competencies. So we have like 2,861 communes, 217 towns, and 103 municipalities. And you will also see later on that we have also almost 13,000 villages. So the rural area is quite extensive in Romania. You have some information, some indicators on the macroeconomic aspects like GDP, unemployment rate. I thought it is important for you to see a little bit of how all these indicators have evolved over the years. And the problem is now that in the last 10 years, due to several reasons, some of these indicators faced some increases, but also some decreases. But we are now, let's say, we trust that the future will bring us better conditions to increase all these indicators. When we talk about rural infrastructure, we include all the physical assets that support the rural environment, including roads, bridges, water supply and sewage systems, waste management facilities, electricity networks, telecommunication, but also we include in rural infrastructure all these social and cultural infrastructures such as schools, kindergarten, sports facilities, or community centers. As I already mentioned, we have a lot of rural localities starting from communes to villages that are spread over the 41 plus Bucharest counties. When we joined in 2007 the EU, Romania was granted some transition periods in order to comply with the EU water directives. Unfortunately, some of these deadlines could not be fulfilled. That's why in this moment, Romania will have to go through infringement procedures regarding aspects like wastewater discharges, but also air pollution, among other infringement procedures. And some of the issues that are in connection with the wastewater are coming in a way from rural areas, and you will see immediately what I'm talking about. We started in 2007 with some low rates regarding access to safe water supply. So by that time, Romania really approaches 50%, while at that time, some of the EU countries were already having like 90% access to safe water supply. That's why Romania started some very important legal and institutional reforms in the water sector management in order to raise all these rates. One initiative that was at that time very well received was the regionalization policy, which tried to, let's say, combine some of the water operators that, for example, before 1989, there were like, and immediately after revolution, in order of thousands of small operators in the water sector, but also for solid waste management. And when the regionalization process came to, let's say, to an end, it was possible to have 43 regional operators covering at county level, but also 2 private operators supplying services in Bucharest and in Ploiești, and these private operators were actually Veolia entities. At this moment, we have regional operators that are operating at the level of 1 county, 2 counties, several counties. It's the case of the operator in Constanța, Raja Constanța, which operates on 8 counties. But we also have a county where we have several operators. And recently, the operator in Iași, which is APA Vital Iași, will start providing water services in Moldova. So we will actually start operating at the transboundary level. You have here the map of Romania and regional operators and their operating area. Why it was this need for regionalization of water services? Due to several reasons. One reason was the European integration and the environmental standards that we had to comply in accordance to the deadline of the accession treaty. Then because of economic reasons, due to solidarity reasons, because the small and medium-sized communities do not have the capacity to prepare and implement projects and then to operate the investments. And on the contrary, the large cities have the capacity to support the financing sources and the necessary investments, and then to extend their services to smaller localities. We also had these reasons for viability of the investments, because the smaller localities could not demonstrate their capacity to implement big investment in the water sector. In this moment, this regionalization process is being blocked for some years due to some problems that occur over the implementation of this process. And now, apart from the regional operating companies, we still have like 900 small water supply and sanitation providers, which are still serving about 1.5 million people. And these small providers have been created under some national financing programs that did not, let's say, were not actually were implemented in accordance to the EU and the big regionalization process at the level of the whole country. We have here some figures regarding how the services have evolved from 2009 over 10 years, and we can very easily see that the rate of coverage with services had increased from almost 55% to like over 70% if we talk about the country level. We have also here some figures showing how the availability of water resources are covered, and let's say in a way in comparison to Azerbaijan, in rural areas in Romania, the groundwater is mainly the water source for the water supply systems. And over the years, as the agriculture did not, okay, how to say, evolve, but then the source, the water source from groundwater is improved, and now the main solution for water supplies in rural areas is the groundwater source. We also have some graphics in which we show how the number of metered connections have also evolved, and we can see that by 2019 and also coming now to 2021, sorry, we are approaching almost 100% connections that are metered. If for water supply we are, okay, let's say, showing big progress, when it comes to sewage systems, we are still behind, and you can see that not much progress has been done since 2009, and we still have like almost half of the population with served by centralized sewage services, and we are talking this in the urban area mainly, while population that have sewage system connected to sewage treatment plant are still in a very around also below 50%. Sorry. I have also included here a diagram showing the tariffs. Yes, so in 2021, if we want to compare price for 1 cubic meter of water plus the cost for wastewater is between 1.5 to 2 euros per cubic meter, which is we say not a very high tariff, but not a very low tariff if we consider that still in rural areas people are having you know, low income, and for them it is not easy to connect to the systems. You can still see that over the country there are big differences between counties, and if we look at the counties where they have the highest prices, these are counties where the rate of poverty is very high, which is a big, let's say, contradiction, and it is now let's say one objective to try to bring these tariffs to an average value. So the first conclusion after these figures and the graphic is that Romania, unfortunately, is the only EU country that has a large portion of its population still without access to safe potable water. We are talking around 20% of the population, which is approximately 4 million, and also lack of adequate sanitation. 32 of our total population, which is about 6 million, still do not have proper services in rural areas. And if we compare Romania to other countries in the region, we can see also that Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Albania, Kosovo, they are doing better than us. Only Moldova and Ukraine is behind us when we talk about connection to rural population, to piped water, flash toilets. We have now some slides showing a little bit of historical data, comparing rural areas with urban areas. the comparison are between 2011, when it was our last national census done, and 2018, with figures that were provided by the National Authority for regulating these communal services. And again, the figures can convince you that we still have a lot of things to do regarding investments in rural areas in comparison with urban areas. As a conclusion is that now safe water is only provided to approximately 80% of the population, pipe water only to 71%, adequate sanitation 60%, 68%, sorry, and sewage networks are only for the 53%. But again, we are talking now about urban areas. In rural areas, we have still to cover this difference, because by 2018, only 47% of rural settlements had access to safe water supply, while only 14% of our rural population had access to sewage networks. We have here also some recent information from a study prepared by the Global Water Partnership for Central and Eastern Europe. By December 2021, Romania had still not much wastewater treatment plants, and starting from very small communities with less than 50 population equivalent, so only 12 wastewater treatment plants, going to let's say bigger communities, over 100,000 population equivalent, only 66 wastewater treatment plant. So we still have to do a lot of investments in the future. We have, let's say, quite a big number of wastewater treatment plants for the localities that have between 2,000 and 10,000 population equivalent. You see like this majority of 633, but we have to concentrate on the rural areas, and here you can very well see that only like 2 million people have access to sewage and wastewater treatment plants. Continuing with some information, we have this that 3.2% of the population are connected to private wastewater treatment plants. In Romania, it is legally supported that the property owner must connect to the existing public water and sewage system if technical economic circumstances allow. The problem is that due to the low level of income in rural population, people are often refusing to connect to the existing network or to new investments, and they continue to use this traditional leaky septic tanks and cesspools. Also, according to our legislation, it is required to have this monthly monitoring of the small wastewater treatment plants, and the monitoring of such of the small wastewater treatment plants should be done at least 4 times per year. You have here some photographs of how these septic tanks look for some rural customers. Now talking about wastewater treatment technologies that are used in small settlements. They are mainly using this type of installation. We are talking about membrane bioreactors, sorry. And also there are other technologies that are used, and here we are talking also about sand filters and also these UASB reactors. Regarding the nature-based solutions, which according to the European Commissions are solutions that are supported by nature, are cost-effective, and they can be used when other conditions cannot be used. Unfortunately, in Romania, these systems using nature-based solutions are almost unrecognized. There are information only on some pilot solutions like aerated ponds and pilot treatment wetlands. It can be, let's say, an explanation because of this lack of land available space around the households. And another key aspect is lack of specific legislation when we talk about these nature-based solutions. The resistance of many households to connect to newly installed sewage network is one issue that needs to be addressed with priority. And in this respect, end of last year, December 30, the government of Romania approved an government emergency ordinance in order to amend and supplement the law that regulates the water supply and sewage services. And among these key amendments of the legislation are the obligation of the water operators to establish tariff strategies based on plans for realization of public services in conditions of efficiency, the obligation of local public administration authorities to keep track of the natural and legal persons that do not discharge wastewater to the public sewage network, the obligation of users to connect to existing public sewage systems if they do not have a proper individual collection and treatment system, the exceptional nature of adequate individual systems in the sense that these systems should be used in situations where centralized systems are not technically and economically feasible, prohibition of direct discharge into the environment of untreated wastewater from appropriate individual systems, and the obligation to elaborate criteria for the authorization, construction, registration, operation, and maintenance of appropriate individual systems. When we talk about rural areas, there are ways to, let's say, to attract and implement investment funds because there is this intermunicipality cooperation that is allowed, and these such small associations, the level of small rural communities, can be financed from different sources. The direct benefits for municipalities of this small size are the opportunity to promote their own projects. Sorry, and to approach projects that have low costs for project management, and also to prepare all these new water supply and sewage systems to be taken over by the regional water operators. In conclusion, there is a significant increase in coverage of services at Romania's level, starting from, as I said, 55% of water supply in 2009 to a percentage of almost 71% in 2019. With sewage treatment systems to increase from 29 to almost 53%. However, we still need to do a lot of efforts to increase the service coverage and to try to approach this level of 90% percentage as to say, according to the Objective 6 of the National Strategy for Sustainable Development of Romania 2030. Also, there are progress regarding the length of drinking water and sewage networks that are operated by the regional and municipal operators. And despite all the efforts that have been done, we still have a need of approximately 22 billion euros in order to comply with the EU directives and also with the targets that have been assumed by Romania under the accession treaty. The regionalization policy showed limitation in the current setup, and we still have a lot of rural agglomerations that lack basic infrastructure and services. Also, there are some issues regarding poor governance, a little bit of lack of leadership in the sector. There are a lot of stakeholders in the water sector and with different anticipated roles and responsibilities. We still have these issues regarding tariff affordability. Regarding the regional operated companies, they still need to improve because we still have regions where the non-revenue water is still around 50%, which is a very high percentage. Now, in view of the National Plan for Resilience, we have to include more serious the issue of climate change, because Romania is facing risks regarding droughts and also lack of poor management towards storm water management. We have to increase the role of civil society. We have to promote technical solutions that are connected and correlated to the size of our localities to better prioritize the investments and to give more importance to the rural areas. Another aspect is that we need to increase the degree of professional training of employees of the operating companies. And also, it's still this need to coagulate and to reduce the number of water supply and sewage operators, which will have, of course, a positive effect for increasing investment efficiency and institutional capacity to implement the projects. And as I already mentioned several times, with focus on rural infrastructure. Thank you for your attention. I just tried to put some relevant photos from Romania and maybe to raise the interest of some of you to come and visit Romania, because we have a lot of history behind. We had great works regarding water management. One of the photos is with the big dam in Arch that is one of the, let's say, big constructions of this type in the world. But also we can share knowledge. Thank you for your attention. And I hope I didn't
thank you.
talk more than 30 minutes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pianaru, for this very interesting presentation on significant progress that has been done despite of all challenges in Romania in terms of expanding the coverage both on the water supply and wastewater side. Certainly that has been an important achievement of several years now of the Romania's membership in the European Union. Let's hope that the progress will be equally fast or maybe even faster, taking into account the very important development, as you mentioned at the beginning, that Romania was invited to start the accession discussions about the membership of the OECD. So this is very welcome. So thanks for bringing this perspective from Romania, looking at the important role of tariffs, and also some of the unexpected challenges that attracted my attention. You mentioned that sometimes you have an infrastructure built, but then you may have a resistance of people to connect to it. So that's a very interesting observation that we could still discuss further. We may have some more questions, but let's leave them for the last session of our meeting, that we will bring them together and then have a discussion. But now let's move to our next speaker, Professor Igor Bodik, who's a professor at the Slovak University of Technology in Bratislava. And he's also president of the Association of Wastewater Treatment Experts of the Slovak Republic. Professor Bodik focuses mainly on technology of urban and industrial wastewater treatment, processing of biowaste, biogas production, chemistry, water analysis. And in the pedagogical field, he's an author of several monographs, university books that comes together to all more than 200 publications. So we're happy to have Professor Bodik with us. So now the floor is yours, please.
So thank you very much for introduction and also for opportunity to present my experience from issue of wastewater treatment, sanitation, and so on and so on. The topic of my presentation is small wastewater treatment facilities and experience from Central and Eastern European countries, and we're focusing on the Slovak experience. Okay, I try to put next. I don't know. Okay. Some of data from my presentation were created in the frame of activities of Global Water Partnership in the Central and Eastern Europe. Adriana used also some data from this study of GWP. And GWP was in the Central and Eastern Europe, was established in 1998, and it is international network of many organizations involved in the water resources management. Significant part of GWP activities has been and still is sustainable sanitation in our countries. Some first activities starts 20 years ago in the frame of GWP, and also in 2004 was founded a task force for sustainable sanitation, and I was the leader of this group. And it was quite interesting work to cooperate with our partners from CEE countries. with the focusing to sustainable sanitation for increasing of connection to wastewater treatment, and so on and so on. As a result of our products, our activities are papers and books about statistical data from our countries, about technologies used in our countries, some book or some guidebook for technologies of wastewater treatment plants. And recently, few weeks ago, was finalized the questionnaire study from our countries, where many data about wastewater collection, treatment, reuse, and so on was published in this questionnaire study. All these books or studies are able to download from GWP parts, and is free for download, and is no problem to have. Some data about our countries, about Central and Eastern Europe. First, I can start with demography. You can see that the countries are different from the population point of view, from the very small country like Montenegro, Moldova, up to relative bigger countries like Poland, Ukraine, or Romania. What is interesting for these countries is that the small settlements play a relative important role in general demography of our countries. And you can see the portion of small settlements. After small settlements, I mean the villages or small settlements with less than 2,000 population or population equivalent. It is small settlements. And we can see that 80–90% of these settlements is portion in our countries. It means it is relative high or very high portion of small settlements play important role in our demography. If we are going to the population in these settlements, then we can say that approximately 30% of population in our countries are living in the small settlements, and it represents 37 million inhabitants in rural settlements in our countries. And it is a relatively huge amount of people, also with the aspects of water and wastewater connection and treatment, and so on. Okay, next tables can say us some real data about people, about inhabitants connected to small wastewater treatment plants. And also we can see that there are relatively low portion of people from these small settlements are connected to treatment plants. And it is different from very low, like in Croatia, 1% up to 44% in Czech Republic. And there are different connection in the small settlements to the wastewater treatment plants. It is important for future, for the connection, for the increasing of connection to wastewater treatment. If we look for comparison of our countries in the parameter as water supply connection or wastewater treatment connection, we can see some differences in our countries, from very high connection to water supply, 90, 80. There are also countries with lower connection, and to the water supply. And generally we can say that wastewater treatment connection or people connected to sewage and wastewater treatment plants is lower principally lower in compare with water supply systems. I think it is some historical aspects for our post-communistic countries where the preferable drinking water connection was more important for our formerly politics, that we should give drinking water to people, and it was not so important to make some effluent systems, and so it is generally, I think, typical for our countries. And you can see that here are some gaps between water supply and wastewater treatment. I can compare the distribution of our wastewater treatment plants in our region. We have bigger or large wastewater treatment plant, more than 100,000 people equivalents. Then we have middle capacities group, 10 up to 100, and small, but not very small, but smaller wastewater treatment plants up to 10,000 people equivalent. It is typical differences in European Union, how we can compare large and small and middle wastewater treatment plants. We can see that the highest amount of treatment plants is in the small group, the smallest group. Here is less than 50 people equivalents. We can say it is domestic wastewater treatment plant. The statistic is not very good and exact, because it is not so easy in our countries to count this small private domestic wastewater treatment plant. It is more or less estimated data from our countries. But we can see that, yes, we have relative high amount of small wastewater treatment plant, but the connection of this on these treatment plants is relatively low, or low amount of people are connected to these small wastewater treatment plants. If I can compare used technologies, treatment technologies in our countries, it is also interesting thing. Here is a list of normally used technologies in our countries, from the classical SBR systems up to septic tanks, and we can see that each country has specific application or specific using of preferable technologies. There are countries with typical technologies, like Latvia, for example. Then is mostly applied are SBR systems, rarely are sludge treatment beds, and then other technologies for the smallest wastewater treatment plants are not used. In compared to the Romania, for example, or Slovenia, there are many types of systems, technology system. It's really all types of systems are used for wastewater treatment plants in small settlements. What about discharge limits, effluent limits from our small wastewater treatment plants? It is also different, individual for each country. There are countries with one group of parameters, effluent parameters. It means all small wastewater treatment plants have one type of effluent parameter. And on the other side, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, and other countries have different effluence requirements for parameter, pollutants parameter, and there are different group, different numbers of limits, and so. But generally, we can say that priority is 3 parameters: COD, BOD, and suspended solids. It is, we can say, general in all countries are preferable parameter. And then is on the individual countries is additional effluence parameter like total nitrogen, ammonia, nitrate, phosphorus, for example. Some countries use this additional parameter, other countries not. Then we have also some other specific effluence parameters like Escherichia coli, chlorides, detergents, and so on and so on. We can see also that these parameters are free up to individual countries, and but we can see some system of these limits for effluents. Okay, go home to Slovak Republic. So a little bit some water characteristics of our my Slovak Republic. 5.4 million inhabitants, very high amount of settlements, 2,900, and 90% of all settlements are small settlements, where are living 1.6 million inhabitants in the rural in the Slovakia. Currently, 90% of people are connected to public water supply, to the drinking water. 80% of the drinking water is from underground water reservoirs. And we have very low water consumption, domestic water consumption, only 80 liters per capita a day. And it was dramatically decreased from old times, from 90s, where the water consumption was 200 liters per capita. And the water was cheap, and using of water was no problem. Now, actually, also 70% is connection of people on the public sewage and wastewater treatment system. You can see here in these graphs the development of connection to water supply from 76% up to 90%. It is going up very, very slowly. And also interesting is this graph where from 60s, 25% of people connect to the sewage system up to 70% today connect to the wastewater treatment and sewage and wastewater treatment. The price of water is relatively low, I think, in compare with other countries. For what it is different, water supply and wastewater treatment tariffs. For water supply, we have approximately 1 up to 1.5 euro per cubic meter is average price for drinking water. And the price for treatment is a little bit higher, 1.2 up to 1.7 euro per cubic meter. It's relatively low, I think, in compare with Western country, of course. Some interesting data about Slovak republics on the way towards higher water supply and wastewater connection. Our access to European Union was in 2004. Open this access, we receive goals or some development goals for wastewater treatment plants. These requirements were up to 2010, all settlements with more than 10,000 people should be connected to the biological wastewater treatment plant. It was a relatively hard goal. It was fulfilled 6 years later in 2016. Okay, fulfilled, we are ready. The next requirement was up to 2015, all people or all settlements with more than 2,000 people equivalent should be connected to the biological wastewater treatment plants. Not mad yet. We need to connect approximately 60 settlements to this biological treatment plants. We are waiting for money and so on and so on. Okay. During this time, before and after access to European Union, approximately 2 billion euro was invested to sewage and wastewater treatment plants. It's a huge amount of money, of course. And during this time, we are completely renewed the water legislation according to EU legislation, of course, with Slovak aspects. Our influence is on the principle of emission and emission principle. It means both effluents and river quality must be used. And of course, nitrogen and phosphorus removal is normal level of treatment technology in all our wastewater treatment plants. Also in the small, sometimes it's domestic wastewater treatment plants have also nutrient removal and so on. What is typical for us, I think it is very, very high price of sewage kilometer. Price for investment for sewage system is 300,000 euro per sewage kilometer. I know in compare with other countries, it is the highest price. I don't know why. Because the money is not from Slovak government, probably money is from European Union, and then the constructors are going with price higher and higher. We have relative good level of wastewater research. Yes, I am from university, I am a researcher, and I think it is very, very good level. Also, with comparing with other countries. Very good cooperation between researchers, universities, and water companies. We are very active in the design of new wastewater treatment plants and so on and so on. It is really, personally for me, very interesting work to reconstruct to new wastewater treatment plants and so on with new technologies and so on. So some actual status of the Slovak Republic in the small treatment plants. Last years, we were focusing mainly on the large wastewater treatment plants because the financial support was from EU for large wastewater treatment plants. The small one, the smallest treatment plants were forgotten as for our government. We have more than 400,000 individual houses without connection to sewage and wastewater treatment plants. It is a huge amount of houses, of individual systems, and we need to upgrade these houses with connection, with treatment, and so. The problem is that these houses are scattered positioning in the countryside. It is very not concentrated houses in the rural settlements, and it is problem then with high investments cost to connect these people, to treat water from these people, and so and it is of course problem. Now actually is very low government financial support for this type of settlements, for this type of wastewater treatment plants, and the sewage discharge in the smallest settlements is without strict control. Generally, we can say these small settlements or treatment or water management in small settlements was transferred control to municipalities is actually, and this municipalities policy is not so easy to work with people in small settlements and so on and so on. And I can say that is a little bit lower environmental awareness in the rural population, mostly in older generation of people. If I'm speaking with my students, I hope in few years it will be better, and this environmental awareness will be better in young generation, and it's probably normal. Okay, there are 4 systems, 4 status or models in small settlements under 2,000 inhabitants in the Slovak Republic. I go to the next slide and I can explain this 4 status or 4 systems. The first one is to connect small settlements to the large wastewater treatment plants in the near cities. During the European projects, we are starting to create agglomeration. Agglomeration was created for preparation of EU project for financial support, and the agglomeration consisted of 1 or more municipalities. In the last years, was this type of connection very popular, that to the large wastewater city in the large wastewater treatment plant in large city were connected small settlements, small satellites from outside, and it was financial support for this type was from European Union, and really many small settlements were connected to large wastewater treatment plants. For example, Bratislava has also some connection up to 30-kilometer small settlements outside from Bratislava are connected to large Bratislava treatment plant. The residents in these small settlements are required to connect to the sewer if it is within an economically accessible distance. This terminus technicus is not so easy explained and is not defined officially, but it's solved individually. Adriana told about this, that there are some resistance of people to connect to the new wastewater sewage, and so it is the same situation in the Slovak Republic on the rural settlements, that people are resistant again or to this connection, because they are thinking that it will be too expensive and so on. This type of system, it means small connect to large, is not more active in our country, because no more EU funds are for large wastewater system. The second possibility how to connect small settlements is to have own treatment plant. The preparation and construction of treatment plants depends only on the initiative of municipality. I can say that no activity from government is to build new small wastewater treatment plant in this group of treatment plants in the small, because we have very limited funding from government, and from European Union is also not so easy to have some support. We have Slovak Environment Fund, is too small for all these projects. They are waiting for application. Really, we have on the table hundreds and hundreds project ready project for wastewater treatment plant for design and also, but the municipalities are waiting for money because no money is for this type of system. Also the goal of this system is to connect more than 85% of inhabitants to settlements. It is indicator for for good project that 85% is connect. And also the residents are required to connect to sewer and wastewater treatment plant if economically accessible distance is in this case. If the settlements, if the village has a central treatment system, sewage and treatment system, then no more individual domestic wastewater treatment plants or individual cesspools are allowed. All people must be connected to network. Yes, the third possibility is to have in the settlement individual domestic treatment plants, so-called domestic. It is less than 50 people equivalent. The construction of domestic or project of domestic treatment plants is solely citizens' initiative. Currently, we have approximately 10,000 domestic wastewater treatment plants in operation. They are relatively very populated. This type of treatment plant is 95% is system of activated sludge system. Is really predominated. Is continuously work this system, and the natural treatment plants like constructed wetlands are pushing very slowly. In Slovakia, we have approximately only 100 small CW in operation because it is there are some resistance to this type of treatment plants in our university. Now we are starting to make some research and so in this type. The last one is possibility for small settlements is classical individual cesspools. If no central sewerage is available in these settlements, then only tight cesspools are acceptable. No septic tanks. I don't know if we have the differences between cesspools and septic tanks. Septic tanks is something continuously overflowed. It's treatment system. Cesspool is not treatment system. Also, septic tanks are not allowed in our countries as individual treatment step. The municipality should provide the control of cesspool contents export. The citizens are obliged to ensure the transport of cesspool contents to the nearest wastewater treatment plant. It's a problem also because we have no free capacity on the near wastewater treatment plants. The price for discharge is very high. It's slowly going up, and currently is approximately up to 100 euro per one legal emptying of 10 cubic meter wastewater per month, somewhere 20 kilometers long distance to the nearest wastewater treatment plant. It is the highest price for this type of wastewater treatment. And then we have many illegal discharge to near rivers, to soil, and so it is not so good control this illegal discharge, because during the night the pump is going to the cesspool and then to the river or somewhere to the soil, and so, and it is this environmental awareness of our people is really also actual. Okay, It was the last one. I have here the references for downloads. I don't know, probably this presentation will go to the people, to the participant, with possibility to download these books and these papers. And also thank you very much for your attention and some nice picture from the Slovak Republic for invitation to you to our countries. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Professor Bodik, for this very interesting presentation, for the invitation to Slovakia to come and enjoy the country, but also for your sharing your experience and signaling some of the key elements in the development of the system. And I picked up especially the importance of setting goals, setting very clear goals, sometimes ambitious, which also determines the level of efforts that is needed to mobilize technical resources, to mobilize financial resources. And certainly this was really interesting, your experience and the presentation of the attempt to agglomerate, to see where the economies of scale can be materialized. And certainly thank you very much for reviewing those different technologies that are available and then can be used to increase the coverage in terms of water supply sanitation, and also indication of some of the challenges. And indeed, just to tell you and share with all participants, all the presentations will be available from our website, dedicated website of this meeting. So certainly everyone can consult and download relevant information. Thank you very much. And now, last but definitely not least, speaker in our list during our seminar, Alexander Sommer from Communal Credit Public Consulting in Austria, who is specializing in technical appraisal and evaluation of municipal projects in Austria on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Sustainability and Tourism. And he has been working on several projects, water supply projects, sanitation projects, ecological river construction projects, and others. But also, Mr. Sommer has an extensive knowledge about the EU subsidies and the EU rules and procedures with the connection to subsidies and to grants. So now I would like to ask you to share the Austrian experience regarding the water and wastewater systems in rural and remote areas. Mr. Sommer, the floor is yours. Thank you. And please unmute your microphone just to be on a... Yes, that should work.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice introduction and for the invitation to present the Austrian experience. Good afternoon to everybody. I must admit that many things I've heard in the previous presentations sounded very similar to me, and even Austria had a very similar experience, especially in the rural areas. In my presentation, I want to focus mainly on organizational and legal aspects and on financing and subsidies in Austria, because this is a little bit different compared to the previous countries. Technology, experience with technology is very similar also to Slovakia and Romania. So, communal public consulting, I think most of you have seen this slide. That's why I want to skip it. I just want to mention that we are one of the largest manager of environmental support schemes in Austria, and the first environmental support program was the program for the water sector. And this program started almost 30 years ago, and we still have not finished everything. So it's really a very long-term program to build and construct water and wastewater infrastructure, even in a small country like Austria. So I think it will be a never-ending story, to be honest. And so also don't be impatient with your progress in your country. It really needs some time to convince people, to convince authorities, to get the money and everything. Some background information about Austria. We have 9 million inhabitants, 80,000 square kilometers, and we have 9 federal states and in total 10 public administrations, what makes many decisions a bit complicated because we have also 9 lawmakers, 9 or 10 different rules, different approaches. This is typical for Austria, but there's not, so the national influence is not so strong in my opinion. So the federal states are quite, even they are very small and don't have many people, but they have a strong influence on everything what happens in Austria. We have more than 2,000 municipalities, and I mean when I talk about municipalities, political municipalities, so the next level below the federal states. Many people, more than 50% of the population lives in smaller municipalities, in villages or very small settlements within the municipalities. Our landscape is mountainous. We are in the Alps. We also have lowlands, flat areas, and so very different challenges in terms of design of water supply and wastewater treatment plants. And maybe a little bit special for Austria, we have a lot of tourism, especially also in small municipalities, not only in Vienna and Salzburg, but also, you know, maybe Kitzbühel or Schladming from skiing, but we have very small municipalities with maybe 500 residents, and then in the winter season, 2,000 tourists. And as you probably know, can imagine, tourists really need a lot of water. So this is very difficult to handle. What we don't have is, so in Austria, the municipality is the key in water supply and wastewater treatment. We don't have river basins like in other states, so the municipality decides on most of the things. Then next, this is good for us. We have a very good water quality in general, very good drinking water quality. You can drink out of the pipe almost everywhere in Austria. We have, I would say, sufficient amount of water. We have a very good quality of receiving water bodies, of rivers. Water scarcity and extensive water treatment is not a problem in Austria. We have, of course, water treatment requirements, but this is not a problem. But what in Austria, rehabilitation of existing networks and plants has started, as we started with the construction 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So the rehabilitation costs come to us. And we also, of course, feel the effects of climate change. So the stormwater intensity, groundwater level decline, spring discharge decline, or drought is something we know and leads to new or additional investments. We need larger sewers, larger pipes, additional wells, additional catchment of springs. Also, which is very helpful for rural areas, the connection of networks, of municipal networks, which is very, very a good thing happening in Austria. So, our organizational forms, as I've said, the most important organizational form is the municipality. And 90% of the water supply systems are serviced by and operated by the municipalities themselves. Second one, which is more well, it's also for rural areas and larger areas, but the associations of municipalities are very popular in Austria. So we have, I think, 200 of them, and the municipalities like to cooperative. The next three forms are quite interesting, and I want to go in detail on the next slides: the cooperatives, the communities, and the private house owner. In general, I want to say that the water supply and sanitation in Austria is dominated by the public sector. So we don't have private operators or private companies. Of course, for construction, so construction companies are required, but we don't have private operators. And people in Austria, I don't know why, also don't like private operators. So it's very difficult for private companies to find a business in Austria. Some of them tried, but most of them were not successful. So the three forms of organization for smaller units: the private house owner, people operate their own facilities. They have small wells on their own plot, rarely springs. They have very small biological wastewater treatment plants. We have seen the types on the, heard about it in the last presentation. Septic tanks are not state-of-the-art, of course, in Austria, so it's the same. The water quality is sometimes a problem because this depends on the operator and on the local conditions. So if the operator is not professional, so the private operator, then water quality might be bad. Water tests are not compulsory for these private wells, for example. The private person is owner of the facility and private law is applicable. But in terms of the legal aspect, it's not, this is not problematic. But house owner often want to replace their own wells by a connection to municipal networks because they expect a better water quality and a constant water service. So this is something people like their own wells, but they want to connect to the networks, also in rural areas. The only problem is it's often too expensive for them. The water community is the next form of organization and is when private people jointly operate small water supply facilities or wastewater treatment plants or some houses built together. One of them owns or provides the plots, and they have a small biological wastewater treatment plant. In this community, water quality tests are compulsory. So you have to pay for it, or you have to calculate the cost. You need at least one small check every year and a full water quality check every 10 years. But this water community has another problem, that's the legal construction, because they also are constituted according to private law, and they need a contract between them, and in case of disagreements between the partners, the situation can become very awkward and very bad, because you have a long-term investment, and if you have quarrels with your neighbors, then also the operation is of the water supply facilities is threatened somehow. So this is, we do not recommend this form of cooperation in Austria, but it happens quite often. The next one is something we really recommend. This is much better than the form before. This is the water or wastewater cooperative. this form is has a legal basis in the Austrian Water Act. This is public law, so there are a lot of rules. I put a link to this law on this slide. You can see it's on the bottom of this slide. Sorry, it's in German, so you will probably not understand, but if you're interested, you can have it translated. So I think this is quite interesting to have this information. There are some really good paragraphs, and I want to explain a little bit. There's the founder of this cooperative conclude and agree. The founders are private people, conclude an agreement on a voluntary basis. Sometimes there's also a compulsory membership or a cooperative by law and public interest, but it's not so important. The cooperative need at least 3 members, and the largest one I found has 2,600 members. So 2,600 private people found such a cooperative. They need a statute, and the statute includes, of course, name, address, rights and obligations, the representation of the cooperative, rules regarding cost sharing, statement of income, expenditures, financial issues, invoicing, dispute settlement, what is very important. So the voting rights are established according to the share of costs, so they might be different between the members. The cooperative has some organs. This is the chairman, who is the representative of the cooperative. There is a general meeting of all members, and the general meeting is responsible for resolutions on the statute or the change of the statute if necessary, the approval of the yearly budget, and the election of the committee. And the committee is the management of the board. So some people, so that's the nature of this cooperative, that some people work together and manage everything what is necessary. Only small cooperatives below 20 members can appoint a manager, a single manager. There's also the need for a financial auditor. This can be an internal or external auditor. And this is very important, these cooperatives are supervised by public authorities. So it's also a cooperation between the public sector and the private people who operate these facilities. The cooperative is in Austria a very stable and proven model for small and medium-sized water supply and wastewater systems. And the foundation and the operation is really supported by the public authorities. So the public authorities also like it, because if there's no municipality which operates water supply facilities, then the cooperative is the second best option for building infrastructure. A little bit about financing and subsidies. Infrastructure is not cheap. So we have heard the numbers from other states, and it's also in Austria not cheap. So you need a lot of funds. But the funds do not come only from the national state. So only 1/3 of the costs are covered by state subsidies, and the rest of the funds must come from equity capital or from debt capital. So long-term bank loans are required in almost every case which I know. So we cannot expect that the state or the federal state pays the water supply system. This is not the case in Austria. We have national guidelines for subsidies, and we have a state budget for wastewater infrastructure subsidies, which is currently 80 million per year. That was higher in previous years, but yes, currently it's 80 million. It's not enough, but it's good for the municipalities. What it did not put on the slides is our tariffs are for water supply system between 1 and 2 euro per cubic meter, and for a wastewater treatment, so approximately 2 up to 4 or 5 euro per cubic.
2 avrodan 5 avroya kadar temizleme xərcləri kubmetrində, amma 1-2 euro arası tutma zatıdır. Tarif sistemində burada tariflər sabit tariflərdir.
И у нас нет различий между различий между более бедными и более состоятельными домохозяйствами. Каковы условия для субсидий муниципалитетам, частным корпорациям? Нужно проводить анализ затрат и выгод. Они не могут просто строить все, что хотят. Им необходимо продемонстрировать, что они будут применять самые экономически выгодные решения. Иногда обсуждается, что является оптимальным, что не является оптимальным.
We had very difficult discussions about this, but at the end, if somebody wants money from state funds, then they have to give us this cost-benefit analysis. Of course, they need a permission for construction and operation, that's clear, and the technical solution must be state-of-the-art. It's also clear if you want subsidies. For larger units, there are also economic conditions. For example, a cost accounting system must be implemented, a reasonable tariff system must be implemented, and if you have to invest in a rehabilitation, you need a business plan for future rehabilitation, covering the next 10 years. So this is something, let's say, new in our subsidy guidelines, to force the operator to think about the economic situation. So it's not only money and technical theme, we also want them to think about their economic situation and to afford the operation of the facilities. We have 3 types of subsidies. Just a brief presentation. We have for very small units up to 4 buildings, there are lump sums. You can see here some figures. For example, if you build a wastewater treatment plant for 4 people, you get 1,400 euro, or for a well, 2,700 euros. So this is a lump sum subsidy. We also have in Austria objects in extreme location, especially mountain huts, and they get 60% of the investment cost. And for larger infrastructure, this includes units with more than 4 buildings. There is also a percentage, so they get at least 10% of the investment cost, a subsidy, and there's an additional funding rate up to 25% for drinking water and up to 40% for wastewater treatment, depending of the spending capacity of the regions and specific costs in the past. So there's a formula behind these percentages, but in average, the subsidy is 1/3. So this is what the state provides. In terms of technology, I don't want tell very much, because we have heard this in the previous presentations. Just I want to mention again, because I consider it very important, the identification and evaluation of options, of technical options, of economical options is very important. And this is mainly managed by the engineers. So the engineer plays an important role in this considerations. What I also want to remind you of is that water supply and wastewater treatment or wastewater disposal should go hand in hand. So do not start with water supply and forget the wastewater treatment and build it 5 or 10 years later. Think it's one system. It's water. It's a water infrastructure, not only water supply or not only wastewater treatment. This is really helpful in the long term economically advantages. Our most common technologies you can see on the next slide. I will skip it so you can see the dug well or the drilled well, spring capture. So this is nothing new for you, I suppose. We have small and large biologically aerated systems, trickling filters, SBR systems. So this is the standard technology. You can buy this on the market. This is it's not a problem to get it. You just need the money. The constructed wetland, just a few words of the constructed wetland, because we had some history or some experience with constructed wetlands. In Austria, there were or still are some engineers who promoted the constructed wetlands and said this is the cheapest solution for wastewater treatment plan. After some time, people recognized that this is not true. So it's a good solution for some special situations, but we have not had the experience that the constructed wetland is a cheaper solution for wastewater treatment plants. So this is not our experience. But we had a lot of fights with engineers concerning this technology. Yes, so this is my last slide, and I still want to comment on some points. In Austria, the triangle between the owner, that's the municipality or cooperative or somebody else, and the engineer and the local authorities is very strong. So they work together. It's teamwork, and they look for the best solution. The second, which is also very important to consider, water infrastructure is a very long-term investment. So we have water pipes in Austria, for example, for the city of Vienna. The pipes are 100 years old and 100 kilometers long. So you make a decision, and 50 years later, you have to live with the decision. So think about life cycle cost. Think about technologies. Think about climate change. So it's really worth to consider all these points. Prefer common solutions, if possible, make common decisions. Enable suitable organizational forms by public law, not only private law, but because this leads to legal problems. An experience from Austria, private people must take responsibility for the facility. So it's not only a duty of the state, it's also a duty of the consumer to have the treatment of their own wastewater and to have a water supply. So don't forget the responsibility of private people. And in terms of subsidy system, establish a transparent and a simple subsidy system, then you can handle it easily. Yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sommer, for excellent presentation and insights, especially into the financing. That was really revealing, and I think it can provide a source of inspiration to our countries. So this was very interesting, and I believe that you won't mind if our participants will come back to you with some additional questions, but we will have a bit of time to discuss. Bear with us. We were running a bit now already behind our planned agenda, but I hope that we can still you can still be with us for another 15 minutes or so, and then we will have some questions and answers. And then for this, I will hand over to our colleagues from Communal Credit, Christian Oberleitner and Rafał Stanek. Rafał,
Yes.
Christian, please.
Yes, hello. I will be alone because Christian was not able to join us today. Yes, so how we organize the questions? Can participants raise the hand and ask the question, or in written form?
I understand the only channel to ask question is through the chat, but I have not seen.
Okay.
I have not seen. So please go ahead with your questions.
Yes. So now, please ask the questions through the chat or through the question and answer channel. In the meantime, I have several questions to our dear presenters. So maybe I will start from the question to Alexander Sommer, because it was very interesting and very relevant to the situation in Azerbaijan. You mentioned that I mean the water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, you need to think a long term, and you need to think about many aspects because it will stay for a long time. And you also mentioned the issue of about the climate change, and it has to be somehow reflected in larger pipes or larger storage. So my question is, there is any kind of a systematic way to include this climate change forecast of the climate change into the planning, and or somehow if the subsidy grant scheme includes this issue of the climate change?
Well, I think climate change is an issue in all meetings and in all seminars, and in the scenes, or the engineers and the public authorities know the problems which arise, I think, from a technical point of view very well. So this is nothing new in the meantime. We also in Austria have the advantage that our Green Party in Austria is part of the government currently. So they are very, so they support the change of the support programs towards more climate change. And so we get more money for climate change programs. So this is really good for us, or good for the people in Austria. So we don't have to look for this money; it comes to us. Anyway, you have, of course, to think what is good and what is not good, and this really depends on the local situation. So the wastewater supply systems, and I've mentioned it, and the wastewater treatment systems need a rehabilitation because they are old, but also because they have to change some technical issues, and we just do it. So it's not so complicated in Austria. We have the funds, we get the funds. That's the advantage. But it's expensive, of course. So it's not nothing for us. It's really expensive.
So I see here you have like combination of awareness is one thing, that you have to be aware also about the climate change, and second, the kind of the investment support scheme. You mean the grant or other financial support scheme to stimulate and to have money. Okay, I don't see any other questions so far. So I have another question to Adriana. It was very interesting, and I was very interested in regionalization in Romania, and very often it was shown as a kind of a good example to solve the problem, especially for rural areas. But from your presentation, I see that this regionalization showed its limitations and it somehow stopped in the time. So can you explain a little bit the reasons? What are the reasons behind this limitations of the regionalization? And do you see there is a solution for this, especially for the smallest rural or remote areas?
Thank you, Rafal. Good point, because after listening to the other two presentations, especially the presentation from our colleague Alexander with Austria, regionalization was a very, very good initiative, like, let's say 20 years ago. We concentrated on, as I mentioned, on rehabilitation and extension of the systems in urban areas, in big municipalities. So these regional operated companies that were created, how to say, on the structure of previous county enterprises, it was easy for them to take over some already existing systems, neglecting their rural areas and forcing in a way the big regional operators to take care of the rural areas. It started to become a problem, because in rural areas we lack water systems, we lack people that could manage these systems, and of course also through the EU programs up to, let's say, 2015, 2018, the small communities were not considered under priority investments. So the rural areas had to find, let's say, money from other sources. But as I mentioned, there was a national program that was offering money to rural areas, but was putting conditions to create their own small operators. So it was already a contradiction. How can a big regional company operate on a territory where you already have a local company that is not willing and actually not allowed to give its systems to the big company? So this was first problem was coming from institutional arrangements, yes, lack of coordination between EU programs, finance programs that were imposing some conditions, and national programs. Then we have a lot of small communities that are spread also on mountain areas, very far from urban center, where investments, in order to make investments to these isolated communities, you needed really a lot of money that were supposed to, how to say, to be managed by local authorities or by local companies at municipal level, which was again lack of people, trained people, lack of vision in a way, and a huge amount of money to be. But now, listening to the example of Austria, I think this could be a way to create these cooperatives, or how they were, okay, and work a lot on awareness that, as Alexander said, private persons should also be aware and responsible for infrastructure. They also have to be involved in also in financing this infrastructure. And also we have to remember that we cannot plan the investments only on EU money. I mean, it's time that also in Romania, people will have to, authorities and also private people would have to base their investments in water infrastructure on some financial instruments that up to now were not considered interesting because of their implication. So I don't know if my answer was too long or I responded.
Yes.
You have a question, I think, already.
Thank you very much. And we have a question in the chat. The question is to Alexander. Sommer, could you read this in the chat?
I'm still reading.
Okay.
And in which proportion shares the cost?
I think we would need to read it out for the participants as they are not able to see perhaps everything that is going on in the chat.
Rafa, can you read that? So I can read. So
yeah,
maybe I'll read it. I will read it. So Alexander, some questions would follow, especially on who and in which portion shares the costs of the peak capacity created and maintained to meet demands for water supply sanitation services from seasonal tourists, much exceeding in number the permanent population in small settlements, touristic destinations in Austria.
So I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to these questions because I know that I'm familiar with the problem, but I don't know the answer to this question. This is the influence of the tourists. The tourists go to the hotels, so the hotels have to cover the cost for the tourists, of course. So they cover this, and it's very different. This in each municipality, the situation is very different. So you have winter and summer tourism, and you have sometimes stable situations, sometimes very different shares, and the question is too detailed to answer it in the short term. But
then my guess is that the cost is not shared; is being just taken up by the operator.
Yes.
It has to be.
No, but tourists pay, of course, the cost with the fee.
Bill.
So it's not the state who pays it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Rafa, please.
Okay, I don't know. Shall we finalize or we still have time? Maybe somebody.
One question, Rafa. One more question, and then
one more question. I mean, we saw some hand raised, but then it disappeared. So, if you have something.
No, I don't. So go ahead. If you have one question, let's go. Otherwise, we will be winding up.
So maybe I have a question to Professor Bodik about Slovakia. I mean, you mentioned that the government financial support is pretty small, and that Slovakia was. I mean, the water sector in Slovakia is somehow very much on the EU money which were coming, and then you mentioned the Slovakian environment. For example, that they mostly rely on their own sources. I mean, from this federal budget of the ministry to provide the support for this infrastructure. So how you see the future? I mean, especially in Slovakia, I think the EU money are a little bit going into the different directions than water sector. So is it that the government will have to raise more money, provide the support scheme for these rural areas, for the remote areas?
Yes, I think now we have problem from in these small settlements and sanitation because Slovakia has I think, the highest portion of individual treatment system in the European country, between European countries. It means too high amount of cesspools, a high amount of domestic wastewater treatment plants. It means our way is going actually to the individual. But probably we need to change this direction, not to individual, but to the some small groups, or I don't know, like in Austria, that some houses, 10, 20 houses, probably could prefer common wastewater treatment plant and so on. Because yes, actually is this government support for small settlements for individual treatment plants is low. It's I don't know, say that nothing, but it's in opposite. I can say that many people, they want to have domestic wastewater treatment. They have problems with application of these domestic wastewater treatment plants, because so many administrative problems are there. That is not so easy to construct or build up new domestic wastewater treatment plant. Then now we are starting something to do. Actually, I am active in the preparing of new legislation for domestic wastewater treatment plant, for example, for new system of operation, for new system of effluents. Quite new. We are in the process of implementing this information to the new law or new legislation system. But I hope it will be in future better. But without government support, it will be very, very hard to connect next 10,000 people to the decentral systems of wastewater treatment plants.
Thank you. So I see from all our panelists that there is a need for the financial support system, especially for this rural areas. So because it's obvious that in all countries it's required and cannot be the infrastructure cannot be built, without the support. Okay, so I think I will finish this question answer session.
Thank you, Rafał, for managing this very handy. And then now I'll just before concluding remarks, I'll give the floor to David Sumek, my colleague who has been working together with Rafał, with David, and with Christian on those projects, and a particular project in Azerbaijan. So I will ask David to share his final thoughts from the discussion, and also maybe give us a few words about the next steps in our projects. David?
Thank you, Krzysztof. As the time is up, and I'm not sure whether our interpreters do not have other commitments, I think the major part of the concluding remarks should be a big thank you to our colleagues from the EU countries, to Dr. Pianaru from Romania, Professor Bodík from Slovakia, and Alexander Sommer from Austria for sharing the experience. But I would also like to thank David Toft and Rafał Stanek from the KPC for facilitating this webinar. As Krzysztof mentioned in the beginning, this webinar is organized as a side event to the technical assistance project that we are implementing in Azerbaijan in cooperation with the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources. And we are actually in the final stage of implementing this project. As you have heard, David Toft presented the major outcomes of the market study. And the market study will feed into the final program, the final Green Public Investment Program that will be published under the EU for Environment, and also published by the OECD. So actually the program will put these calculations of the investment needs into the broader implementation framework. So it will also outline implementing requirements, how to go ahead with this program. So our work will be finalized with the design of the program, but then it is of course up to the ministry to go ahead and implement this green public investment program or any public investment program in future, because this program can serve also as a model for preparing other programs. So for me, the discussion was very interesting, and we have, I think, with the colleagues, food for thought for implementing this or including in the analysis. And I also hope that this discussion was helpful for our partners in Azerbaijan and also in other EAP countries. So I would like to invite you to check the EU for Environment website on the developments, and as I mentioned, the study will be also published there, so please feel free to consult it and get back to us with any questions that you may have. So that would be on my side, and again a big thank you.
Thank you, David, and let me join the thanks to the presenters, to the speakers for excellent presentation and insights. The fact that we still have over 40 people connected, that shows that the discussion was very interesting, even though we went over the allocated time, which is my fault. That should have been my responsibility to manage better time, but the discussion was really exciting. So thanks for this. Thanks my colleagues who have been working on the project and then on also the preparation of the seminar. Finally, I would like to thank Mari, who has been helping us on the technical side. Excellent support, not technical problems whatsoever. And finally, as usual, great thanks to our interpreters who have done a great job as usual. As David said, please check out our OECD EU for Environment.org website. Sign up to our newsletters, so there will be a follow-up on this and other projects on environmental public expenditure. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Have a good rest of the day. Stay safe, and let's keep in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, everyone.